Hello, it's episode 42, Small Business Lives, and today I've got Federica from Leadership 75 talking all about equine assisted coaching. It's a really exciting method of coaching, and so it's really one to watch or listen to as you go about your business. So hopefully, I'm just going to invite Federica on now, so just bear with me, and I'm on as we speak. So hopefully she'll come on. So do spread the word and let people know, because we've got the lovely Federica. Hi, Ideal PR1. Lovely to see you there. Don't go away. This is a good one. This is all about equine assisted coaching. And Federica is going to be talking about that, and also her small business story, because it's Small Business Lives, episode 42. And it's been a labour of love doing this. And we've had the most amazing small businesses prior to Federica. And they're all saved on IGTV, and amazing stories, amazing tips, amazing things to learn from. And if I use the word amazing one more time, maybe I need to choose a different word. Anyways, welcome, Federica. Welcome.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi, Sophie. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, that's brilliant. And Ideal PR1, I'm just going to mention her again. She's absolutely lovely account and wonderful to follow. So I'm really pleased that you're here. So you mustn't go anywhere. So I want you to introduce you, Federica, and then, and let's get going.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Federica. I'm originally Italian, and I live in London. And a couple of years ago, I started a business called Leadership 75. And all I do is helping people to grow and gain insight into self. And I do that with the help of horses. So that was very, very briefly something about me. Yeah, so I don't know. Would you like, Sophie, me to tell more, or?
Yeah, no, I want you to really go into more detail about what it is that you actually do, because I think this is actually going to be quite thought-provoking for people. And I think it's going to be something quite new. And I think people who maybe don't have knowledge about horses may not actually understand how it could work for them. So there's lots of and I think it's really important, because I've experienced this. And Abigail, this will be wonderful for you, because it's all about equine assisted coaching. So I'm glad you're here. If you don't watch it now, watch it afterwards. And I've experienced this, and it was really amazing. But over to you, Federica. Go for it.
So it's a long story. It's a journey that started 10 years ago, maybe longer. At the time, I was living in the Netherlands, and I've always loved horses. I grew up with horses. I had my own horse when I was a little girl. And I felt always that horses, I felt good around them. So in my life, I was always involved with them. And I also, as I was growing up, I developed an interest for personal development. So I studied at school, I studied psychology. And then, I was going through counseling at some point and coaching. Mainly, I was going through some challenges in life, but it was also because I liked that helping profession, and the fact that, wants to understand more about self. And that was one day when I was actually at a horse event in the Netherlands, and I read in their brochure about this workshop called The Horse's Mirror. And the tagline was, come in and discover how horses help us humans to gain insight into self. And I said, wow, this really sounds like me. So immediately I went when that workshop was being delivered. And I loved it. I mean, it's, that there was basically this coach with a round pen made of some thin poles, the pigtail poles that some of you may know, that put in the countryside to make fencing. And then a tape around with a horse in the middle. And in the round pen, there was then a participant that was just volunteering to take part in this workshop. And then based on the interaction, so how the person interacted with the horse, a lot of personal themes came up. And it was surprising, you know. It's what I especially, I remember that I found surprising is how immediate it was. That in very, very short time, I had that impression that you get to the essence of the problem, of the topic, or the subject. So then short after, I booked a session for myself, and I experienced a workshop for myself with this coach from called Inga Kruse, by the way. I say hi if she's there. I don't think she's there. She watches them at some point maybe. And it was also, yeah, she told me, I remember, you can ask a question or you can just step in blank as with no questions. And then we take it from there, which is so unlike whatever comes, if you go to a counselor or a coach, you have to come with a question, you have to think of your goals, you have to think. While there is just, you go in, you almost don't know what to expect. You can ask a question for yourself or something. You don't even have to pronounce it or to express it. And the rest comes. Because and then of course I loved it so much. I started studying about it, and that became my profession later on over the years. And I then I've tried to understand how it works. So the principle is, of course, that horses are prey animals. So in nature they're hunted, right, by predators. So they're extremely sensitive to their environment and to the people they have around. And we are predators for them. So if you just remove all in a natural setting, we would be the predators and they would be the prey. So it's extremely important for them to understand in a split second your intentions, your emotions, and who you are. That goes beyond even what you mean. In sport, those of us who know horses or have been riding, they know, we've been told, oh, horses understand your emotions. And yes, but in this setting, we actually switch. We don't teach the horse anything. We actually ask the horse what has got to teach us. And if you think about the fact that horses have been in the world for about 65 million years, so that's a very, very long time from an evolution perspective. And us human beings, I think, have been around for about 200,000 years. And we and horses and humans have been together for about, I think, 4,000 to 6,000 years. So they have been around a lot longer than us. And then they have a knowledge of nature, of the world, a lot longer than us. And we've been, despite all this, we as a species have grown faster thanks to our culture, thanks to our brain, and they have managed to cooperate with us. So by partnering with humans, horses have managed to survive, right? If you think how long they've been around, they could have been extinct otherwise. But thanks to the fact that they're so sensitive, even though they're so vulnerable as prey animals, they're also, as they're now in their current appearance, they're very big, but their legs are very thin. They're very fragile as well. But despite that, they've managed to cooperate with us, and we have been protecting them. So thanks to them, we've also grown, because we have traveled on their backs. We have, at the beginning, we used them only for meat. We've eaten them. But despite that we actually hunted them, they've given back a bit of their freedom and their instinct and even their life for something bigger. Because we started breeding them, we started using them in sport, and now there's a lot of horses in the world. They're not an endangered species at all. So that fascinated me, I guess, as I started learning about them. And maybe I'm saying all this because maybe there is also a spiritual component to this. Maybe horses have come to our lives because they've got something to teach us. And this is what I wanted to discover, and this is what I wanted to offer to everyone with my business, with Leadership 75. So
It's a really interesting one because obviously there are so many different methods in terms of coaching, and coaching has got a widespread usage. You know, I say I'm a coach, you know, and I know that Teresa from You Coming Alive is on here as well, and you know she would say she's a coach, and it sometimes gets diluted in certain respects. But this is a form of coaching that is very rarely talked about, actually. And I know from my perspective that I've worked in the past with young people who have been traumatized, and they had equine assisted therapy, which is different because it's working with somebody who is actually intrinsically unwell, and it's supporting them to learn how to care for something else and build a connection with something, an animal, to then filter that into self. But this isn't about that in that way. This is working, as you very clearly identified with me, with people who are well, but actually who may be looking for that additional insight into self. And I think, you know,
Yeah,
would you agree that that's how it is?
absolutely. Yeah. So also the name of my company, Leadership 75, you know, it's got very little. If you go on my website, leadership75.com, you see also that I've got a horse in my logo, but the word itself might sound like it's got nothing to do with horses, but it comes from the word personal leadership, which is the ability to drive yourself to what you need or what you want. And horses especially have got an ability to awaken that in ourselves, to stop us from people pleasing or doing things just because we think we have to. I don't know, thinking, achieving goals, there's nothing wrong with that, having goals and wanting to achieve them, but they have also, I don't know, an ability to put ourselves in tune back to our essence. So, for example, coming back to the metaphor, sorry, of the horse in nature and the herd, they're herd animals, horses, right? So there's one leader, two actually leaders in a herd, and all the horses are very happy to follow and be guided. But at one point in time, at least, every horse will make the decision. And I say make a decision. It's very human way of looking at it, but leave the herd of origin to go to another herd. And it happens at a specific time when the herd of origin is not longer able to fulfill their needs, their basic, like there's the one lead stallion in the herd and many mares and their offspring, right? But there are mechanisms in place that in nature to prevent inbreeding. So a stallion will never try to have babies with his daughter, for example, because he will be inbreeding and it weakens the genes, right? So at one point there is another stallion that passes by. He is ready. He's not related to this little mare. He's ready to set up his own herd, and then the mare goes, and the stallion is very happy to let her go. That's in the name of vitality, right? So making that step, when you bear in mind your needs, your basic needs, what you're born to do, the most important thing for a horse and a herd is surviving and producing offspring to get the species go further. And that's fine. So it's simple then to think, right, 1 + 1, go. It's not, you know, think of how often we get stuck into a job because, yeah, we need the money, but actually, you know, it doesn't provide us with what we want, with what we really want. And then, you know, we start thinking about that. What are your basic needs? What do you want in life? What can make you happy, but also what can make you vital more than happy? What does it make you wake up in the morning and think, yes, I feel alive? So that is personal leadership.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's about owning your thoughts, and making the choices based on knowing self. And I think sometimes there's so much noise. I'm looking out at the window at the moment, which is why I'm not looking at you. I'm just thinking this through. Yeah. There's so much noise out there, and I go on about this all the time, especially on social media. There's so much noise. and there's so much you should be doing this. You know, there's the lovely Teresa, who's maybe still on here, talked about this in one of her posts. You know, we use the word should. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. There's so much pressure all the time, and actually we place that on ourselves. And I think the beauty of this with equine, working with a horse, and the horse mirrors our behaviors, and it mirrors our thoughts, and it mirrors things that we don't even know that we're actually experiencing within self at the time. And the only reason why I can say that is because I did actually come on your workshop fairly recently, and it was it was a very strange experience for me, because I might be locked into a certain way of how one gets coached or how one coaches. And this wasn't about that. This was about allowing myself to be. And it was about allowing myself to really, and this is my experience. So that doesn't mean it's anybody else's experience. This is my experience. And it allowed me to open myself up to an experience that I maybe didn't know that much about, and I didn't know how it would prevail, which is what you said. But actually that was very uplifting in a way, and it freed me up. And by freeing me up, I actually understood myself a bit better than I probably would. And I wasn't waiting for someone to tell me, even though you were there and you could give some views back on what was actually happening. I wasn't waiting for you to tell me in English or in any language that I speak anything. I wasn't dependent on words. I was actually dependent on me, that I knew it inside. And this is what you're talking about, isn't it? In terms of self-leadership. Yeah. I owned it. I do know it. I have that power. But the horse mirrored me in some peculiar ways and made me think about me, which I never do, actually. And then I understood me better, just in tiny bits, not overall, just little things. Like, you know, things to do with boundaries, to do with me, that are very important. We talked about it, didn't we? They're very important. And it was how I interacted with that horse, and how he interacted with me. He walked away from me because he knew that I didn't really want to engage with it, because I had my block up, which is what I did. I was wary, so I put my block up. He didn't engage. As soon as I opened up to it, he came to me. It was the most peculiar thing. He came to me and he followed me. No lead, no bridle, nothing. He didn't have to do that. He could have walked through the ring, you know, what do you call it? The cord that was there. He could have walked through it. He's big. Yeah. He didn't. He followed me. Yeah. But when I closed down, he walked away, because he knew I wasn't engaged with it. He knew I didn't want to know for that moment. And then that made me think about what was going on in my head. It was really powerful. It was the most beautiful experience, but it was really powerful. In any case, it's not about me, but I just wanted to give that as a little bit of an insight into how powerful the horse was in allowing me to understand more about me and work towards my own leadership, which is why Leadership 75, it works. So, I don't know if there's anything you want to add in there at all.
Thanks for sharing. No, I mean, there's nothing to add, of course, to your, you know, when after a session, I tend to stay quiet. And, you know, now that you talked about yours, I don't want to add anything because it's so personal. And that actually allows me to say this now that you mentioned if I want to say anything. The fact that me as a coach, I'm not a traditional coach that is there and asks you question very, very present. No, my role is to make sure ensure the safety of all parties, give introduction at the beginning, but during the session I let the horse lead, and I'm in the background just to subtitle what needs to be subtitles. And sometimes there's nothing to subtitle, and that's amazing to see. It gives me goosebumps every time. And even if I think about it, that sometimes, even though somebody hasn't got any experience with this methodology, that the communication is there, that you know what you have to know. And there are also certain things that you don't know, and you just don't have to know, right? And that is the awareness that comes. So that's why me as a coach, I have a role that is more, very much more in the background during the sessions.
And that's what I meant by the language isn't always necessary. And as human beings, we hold on to, I think, a lot of the time that language or visuals, you know, especially on social media, I go on about it all the time. You know, language, our copy, our tone of voice, all this, but actually isn't about that. It's almost going back to the real basics of what we are as human beings, and actually taking our brains back to a place. I don't know, actually, I'd be intrigued what, Teresa, you think about this, and taking our brains back to a place, almost our innate part of our brain, and our primeval part of our brain, and letting it just do its job and stop forcing it and stop imposing it. It was just really interesting way of working. I mean, I think the thing is that during the session you did take a step back, and the horse led and I led, but actually I observed other people in the coaching, you know, on their own session as well, and it was very interesting to see how very different. And I was observing from a distance, so I wasn't involved and I wasn't there, but I could see how the horse interacted very differently. And there was at one point the horse told you to go, not dangerously, but pushed you away and said, no, this is my session with this person. He didn't even know this person. So he'd chosen that actually he wanted to be with this person. It was so amazing. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, and the session is, you know, every session is very different, and the same horse is very different as well with each participant. So it's exactly what you're describing. So in that session, I remember it came to a point that there was the family system of that person involved. So we were still in the round pen, and that round pen became the participant's family system, because there was something with her mother. I'm not going to go into detail. So I gave her some props and I said, okay, this is your mother, say these things to your mother. And in a traditional systemic, this is called systemic coaching with horses, traditionally is done not in the round pen. So you would do it in just the arena. And the coach would get into the arena to understand the positions and stuff like that. So that's why I stepped into the round pen, to understand the positions and stuff better. And the horse pushed me away, because at that moment, that round pen was the participant's family system, and I didn't belong there. So he said, no, you go out. You don't belong in this family system. There's only her and her mom and her dad, and so that's what was happening. It was amazing as well that happened. But they feel when you belong and when you should get in or when you should not get in. It happens also.
Because that's the thing, and you said about the fact that, you know, within the coaching, you know, you take a step back, but there are points, like you said, where you come in, and actually you can give insight and guidance in terms of how that horse is interacting and what it means within their system, which then relates to potentially, is that not right? Is that?
Yeah. And in that sense, I'm still more present in asking questions, or I even ask the participant to say certain things to their mother, father, whatever. Although they don't have to, they can tell me whenever it's too much. I keep telling them, never do anything. Rule number 1, never do anything that you don't feel like doing or saying. So, but in that respect, in that session, it was necessary to be more there as a coach, while in other sessions, things just happen naturally. So you have to go with the flow, and you as a coach always have to, I only look at the horse. I look at the participant very, very little. And whenever, because it's not a conversation between me and the participant, it's the horse facilitates a conversation between the participant and the participant's self. And I'm just a there to help with subtitles. I wouldn't even say interpret, because that even goes a step too far. It sometimes happens that I don't get the message right, or whenever, not just me, whatever it happens and a coach is not following the horse's lead, it can also happen that the horse has to leave, to go away himself, as if saying, right guys, if you're not listening, what am I here for? I'd rather go with my friends and eat my grass. So you always have to be very, as a coach, very focused on the horse's message, and let that conversation be led by the horse and the participant, and only be like, basically a mediator in a way. Say, right, this is when this happens, and the horse is, you may be showing this. Do you recognize it? And going back to whenever a coach is in the session, whenever is not in the session, we have roles in our mind and things like that. But the horse doesn't know, of course. I mean, the horse understands the setting and the roles and the participants and which theme belongs to whom. But there was once a case of a team when the coach was part of a team, but he wanted to give a workshop to his team, right? And he was staying outside of the pen, but the horse pulled them inside because he was part of that team. So for that, it was confusing. Like, why are you outside? You should be inside, right? The same can happen if the horse, there could be sometimes, and it happens in coaching, traditional coaching as well, when a participant or a coachee brings a theme that is close to our heart, it touches us as a coach, and it may then make us feel vulnerable. And then the horse might then show that as well. Because, for example, when a horse stands between the participant and the coach, covering the eye line so that there's no more eye contact, there's normally vulnerability. So it's the time when a coachee often starts crying, and that's, my job as a coach to just step back, shut up, and let it happen. But it can also happen that the horse does the same, but is closer to the coach. And in that sense, it could be that the coach is experiencing vulnerability. For example, I don't know, if there's suddenly a theme that touches, could be the death of somebody, and then he feels it, so he protects it. So these are things that can happen. And
I mean, it's a really interesting one, and I think if you've been around horses, then you may have a bit more of an understanding of it, a little bit. If you haven't, you may understand this, or you might think, actually, I don't know what this is about, and I think it's just I think it's actually just really intriguing. Actually, I found it really intriguing when I, first found out that you were doing this, and I had to open myself up to experience it. I didn't have to, I wanted to, because I was intrigued. It made me think, that we always gravitate to humans. We always want everything from humans, and we want words, as I said, and solutions, and someone to solve things. And actually, it's in us so much more than we realize. And animals have this wonderful way of drawing that out of us, and horses do particularly. And I think what I found very interesting was actually how the herd does actually interact with each other, as you've explained in, prior to what I'm saying now, but even more intricate elements to it, which I'm not going to go into now, or you might want to, but just different things, like you said, in terms of their placement and where they put their bodies and how they align up, and actually how it does. And okay, we're putting a meaning to that, but it seems to correlate in that way, and we can only put meaning stuff so that it means something as a human being, but it actually does seem to work within the herd in that way. So if they interact with us in that way, then there must be something in that as well, and we can learn from them. So it's changing the balance of where human beings always tend to be the ones who want to control and who want to know it all and have an answer for everything, and actually pushing you into a zone where maybe you don't always have to have an answer to everything, and it doesn't have to be concrete, and it doesn't have to be in writing. it can be in here and you can express it. I don't know, very, very interesting. There was Ideal PR1 was just saying, are these one-to-one sessions? Which is a good question.
Yeah, great question. They are, most of them they are. So the sessions can be one-to-one with me. And sometimes I also do workshops in groups where I get a maximum of 5 participants come to one of my venues to, and that it's still one-to-one sessions, but there are many people attending it, so watching it. And even then you learn a lot because you understand, you see the difference. What we were just talking about, completely different session with the same horse, completely different horse, even though it's the same horse, it's a different behavior. So by watching other people's sessions, you learn a lot about yourself as well. But yes, the sessions can definitely be one-to-one. So I do one-to-one sessions. And another thing that I wanted to say that I found amazing about this methodology when I first discovered it is the privacy that goes with it. Because I didn't particularly, I remember when I went to coaching, or I wasn't looking to tell all my life story to an individual. And with this, you don't have to. Actually, it's all beyond the stories. It's the stories makes it more complicated. So often I go away knowing nothing more, nothing less than what I knew when we first started the session. But still, the participant comes, after looking at me, thank you, and a lot has happened, but I don't have to absorb or get all that information, process it. I don't have to know, and especially the person doesn't have to tell me. You don't, all your secrets stay within you, but because it doesn't matter. It's not that your life doesn't matter, but it's the switch. It's literally what I compare it with is a bit like pressing a switch. And that's what the horse does, and you don't notice it. What you were saying is, it's not all that thing is not there with our brain. Yes, because something happens beyond the words and beyond our understanding. And you may realize days or weeks later that something has happened. Yeah, I had it sometimes in my own sessions, I say this has changed my life, but it keeps changing my life every time. So I do I have something that I want to deal with, and then I do a session for myself, and a message comes out, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not ready. And then weeks later, I get an email, and suddenly I get from the person involved in this particular situation, and that email comes in a very different way, as if something has switched. And I'm like, no, I don't want this anymore. So this is what
No,
happens.
I think the thing that's interesting, and I'm coaching in different formats, and you do that in any case, is that they all have their worth and they all have their value because of what we as human beings are searching for. Because that's when we want coaching, we're searching for something to help us to, in our heads, maybe fix something or find a solution or find insight, whatever it is that we're doing as human beings. We're searching, but sometimes that searching means that we shut down. I honestly believe that. And actually, sometimes we need to go back to that purest form of not always having to have an outcome that is tangible in its normal format, as in we achieved this and we achieved that, and it's all figures and facts. And I actually, sometimes it can be looser, and actually that, I don't know, what does anybody think about what we're saying here? I'm really intrigued, actually. I'm intrigued. Does it always have to be tangible? Does it always have to have stats? Do we always have to say, I went from here to here? Do we always? Or actually, can we just go into a situation far more open, let it just happen, let us just experience it, and maybe have a question that we want to resolve, that we find the solution to, and we don't need words or visuals, but we just have an experience from a creature that draws it out of us without us even knowing that it's doing it, because we're forming a connection of just looking, just smelling, just touching, just seeing its reaction to us, which makes us think. Don't know. It was really interesting to see what people think, actually. I was just going to say, Abigail was just saying, what does this horse do when he's not coaching with you?
What do these horses do when they're not coaching with me? Great question. So the horses that we use are not particularly special or trained horses for this particular work. They are domesticated horses that are used in sport or for recreational riding. So they have to be safe to be around. So they are domesticated. I wouldn't work with wild horses, but no, otherwise, yeah, they're ridden by their owners. They're happily grazing with their friends, and they're in the herd. But they're not especially trained for this type of work, in the sense that that's a question that I get a lot, actually. It's perhaps not exactly what you were asking, Abigail, but I take the opportunity to mention it. So there's no such thing as training an animal for this particular work, because it would actually remove them from being this pure and clear mirror. So the closer they are to their self and the more in balance they are, the better it is. So yeah, they're just very normal horses. Thank you.
So Ideal PR1 said, do people have a series of sessions with the same horse? And do you think the horse knows if the participants come again?
People don't have normally a series of sessions with the same horse. How I work is I before I even know before the person comes, or I even know the participant's question, I ask one horse to come forward for me. So I don't choose it; they choose me, or they choose the session. So in general, it can happen that that's the same horse, but as I work with a team of horses and as a herd, it's actually more likely that they will be working with different horses. And even it can happen that it's the same horse by coincidence. I don't know if the horse would know that the participant come back again. It's possible, but I wonder, if there's a question behind the question. So are you maybe asking if the horse's behavior would change because it's seen the person before? I don't think so. The beauty, one of the horse's characteristics, and we go back to nature, is the fact that they've got, for example, very special sensors in their eyes to scan the reality between 50 and 100 times per minute for small changes. So they're very sensitive to changes. And for a horse, almost every minute is a new reality. There's almost no before and after. There's no story. So I doubt that they would actually remember, oh, yesterday or a week ago, this person has done this and that. Horses remember if they get traumatized. So if you do something bad to a horse, they'll remember it, but they're not, I don't think they will be, oh yes, we said this yesterday, or the beauty is actually that we're always in the moment. There's always a new reality to it. So, but thanks, great question.
And then Abigail said thank you, and she said, how do you choose which horses are suitable apart from the safety aspect? And I think you've answered that in terms of they sort of choose you, but in terms of the stables where you work and things like that, I think that's an important thing maybe to outline.
Yeah, sure, thanks. No, the horses, they have to be not too young, 4 to 6 years at least of age. But there are exceptions. They have to be mature, especially mentally. Just like with people, you would never expect a child to be a coach. You wouldn't expect a foal to be a coach either. So they have to be in balance with themselves. They have to have sorted themselves out before they can help us. Foals, when they're too young, they're too playful. So that's another element to it. And that means that me as a coach, I wouldn't know very easily if a certain behavior is a mirror for the participants or if it's just the horse being playful. So they have to be well balanced and also not traumatized. So I'm very careful with horses that have been abused in the past, or even though they may be rescued and maybe, you know, sound now, there could be, you know, there could be still issues with them. There could be things that then they carry afterwards. So yeah, it's important that they're well balanced. So age, and gelding and mares. So we don't work with stallions because again, they're very playful, even though many are perfectly safe, but they're very playful. So it would be hard to tell whether they're just being a stallion or whether they're just mirroring the participant.
Yeah. No, but really great question. Thank you, Abigail. I was going to say, in terms of actually working with you, because let's get that in now, because we talked for ages, and we haven't gone through our normal small business lives kind of questions, but I think that's absolutely fine, because I think this is quite a unique subject, actually, a unique business that you run. I want you to definitely get in, you know, the bit about, you know, how do people actually, you know, engage, how do they get to work with you? I think that's really important.
How can they work with me in the sense of how they can contact me?
Yeah, how they can contact you, how can they find out more, where do they need to go? I think
Yeah,
that's really important to get that in now, actually.
yeah. So they can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, and go on my website, that is leadership75.com. All the links are in my link tree in my Instagram account. So if you go to leadership75 on Instagram, in my link tree you'll find my website. I am doing a session on Monday, so in a week, about the horse's mirror, where I will actually explain more. We'll have an hour session to discuss, and you can ask any questions, and I will be explaining the concept more in detail. We'll also look into communication, how our communication as human being creates biases, and how we think, you know, our predator mentality is different from a horse's mentality, and what that means. So if you would like, sign up for that Zoom session. You can do so via my
And that's
website.
free,
Again,
isn't it? But that's free,
free. Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, free of charge. The link is in Linktree. I've also got two videos that you can download. Again, the link is in Linktree, where I explain more about the horse's mirror and as a concept, and why horses, and what to expect of a session. So yeah, I would say contact me. And then of course, yeah, contact me. My email is info@leadership75.com. And you know, if you drop me an email, we can also arrange a call so I can talk to you about it. You can ask me any question you want. So there's plenty of ways. So but the first, I would say, visit my website, leadership75.com, and follow me on Instagram,
Yeah.
on my Leadership 75 Instagram. That would be great.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I think the Zoom session, free one next week, on the 27th. I think actually it's something that, you know, if you're intrigued by it, if you want to find out more, if this doesn't quite ring to the way you understand what coaching is, and actually how you can unpick it a little bit more, Federica will be able to do that in much more detail in that session. So I would definitely sign up. You've got nothing to lose. And actually, genuinely, you know, who am I? And it's all individual, everything in life. But it was really powerful what I experienced. And I didn't expect it to be. And I got quite emotional as well. And I didn't expect it to be. And I actually did learn about stuff about me and boundaries, and it consolidated it, and actually taking it forward, it made me realize how a lot of the boundaries that I put in place, actually I don't need to, and those that do need to be there can stay, but the rest don't. And it was very insightful, and no one said that, but I learned it from the experience. It was really weird, but really good. And I'm just going to say it like that. It was really good, and it was tangible because I had a movement in there. I moved, and it stuck with me. And because the experience was so unique, it stuck with me even more than talking to someone. That's what's really weird for me. And I know you can't comment on that because it's my experience, but that's the honest to God truth. I was just going to ask you, because we have gone on for you know, quite a period of time, and I think you should come back in any case. We'll do another session another time. Actually, I think we should. I think it would be really good, actually. And maybe what we could do is maybe we could get a few people who might have been on again, and they can come on, and we can do a live rooms where we have several people come on, or even people, we just invite them on who are interested as well. I think that'd be quite interesting, actually. But what I was going to ask you is if there was something else within the sort of your thought process before coming on today that you wanted to mention before we sort of come to a close with this live today.
I think we've said a lot, you know, it's always a challenge, as you know, putting it into words, but we found plenty of words, which I think is great. One more last thing is that there will be a live workshop at some point. So the session on the 27th on Monday is on Zoom, so it will be virtual, but on the back of that, there will be a workshop. So sign up for that session, and also, if you like, sign up for my newsletter. I'll actually put now a link in Linktree. So if you want to stay updated on the next live workshops and when you can take part. So yeah, there will definitely be one more in this autumn at some point.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. I was just going to see if there was any last question. We've talked really what's unique about your business. And I was just going to say, thank you, really. I've gone completely off piste. I haven't asked you any of the questions I was going to ask you. You knew prep for it, and I haven't asked you. But no, I think people were intrigued, actually, and I think that's really good. And I was just going to say, there are other equine assisted coaches around as well. It's not something that Federica just does in, you know, in isolation, but there are few people who do it. I would definitely go and find those links, and I would definitely go and find out more about it, whether you like horses or not, because you can learn so much from just even observing. But amazing. Thank you so much. You're going to have to come back, Federica, and talk again, and then talk through all the other kind of stuff as well that we were going to talk about today. But it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to save this, everybody, and upload it as an IGTV later. And I will be back next Monday with Authentic Mindset at 1 o'clock. Be good, everybody. And thank you so much, Federica, again.
Thank you. I think somebody's asking one last question. If I work with children, I would say, short answer is I don't, but maybe send me an email. We'll talk about it. Sorry, just didn't want to.
No, that's okay. I didn't see it. No, that's good. Yeah. Abigail is an artist, and she paints horses as well, and interesting person to connect with. Really, very much into nature, and she was just talking recently about her wins on my post on Friday about being involved with rangers in her local area. So it's something to definitely connect maybe with Abigail in any case. But love you lots. Thank you very much. I'll be back for episode 43, Small Business Lives, on Monday the 27th of September. Ciao, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao, everyone, and thank you. Bye. See you soon.
Bye-bye. No problem at all. Ciao.
Bye, ciao.